Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by Gerry Hamilton. Malik Muhammad is officially off to the NFL. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. I want to thank our sponsor for this edition of On Texas Football. That's our friends over at Advanced Pain Care. We'll tell you more about Advanced Pain Care here in just a little bit. But, Gerry, this move was expected. He had already opted out of the bowl game. Really a formality. Malik Muhammad announcing that he's entering the NFL draft on Monday. And, Gerry, similar to Anthony Hill, when you recruit a guy that was as highly touted as Malik Muhammad, this is pretty much what you hope to get out of them by the time they leave for the NFL.
Yeah, you want to have your most highly recruited guys be 3-year players if possible. This is a good thing for the University of Texas program to have these guys who are ranked top 50 in America, top 25, 5-star, whatever they may be, play 3 years and head off to the NFL draft. Does that mean Manny Muhammad's going to be a first-round pick? We're not saying that. But he was a starter for 2.5 seasons at the University of Texas. He exits the program with 98 tackles, 76 solo, 16 passes defended, 3 interceptions, and a sack. He's had a really strong 3 years at the University of Texas. Missed the Florida game this year that seemed to be a very big deal, and he was playing high-level football at various times this year. But I think this is a great thing for Texas. We want to wish Manny Muhammad and Malik Muhammad all the best. He's done a lot for Texas football. Look, that commitment, when he picked, I was there, I emceed his commitment, his ceremony that day. When he picked Texas over Alabama in DFW, that was a big deal for Steve Sarkisian, Jeff Banks, and the staff, Chris Gilbert. Look, Nick Saban was on the phone with Manny Muhammad an hour and a half the night before the ceremony, was trying to convince him not to commit to Texas, just give it some time. This was a big recruitment for the Texas Longhorns. You know, the Anthony Hills, the Manny Muhammads, the Colin Simmons, all those guys we've talked about in DFW, they were all huge for the University of Texas and Steve Sarkisian. And Manny Muhammad, Malik Muhammad, I'm going to keep calling him Manny, but Malik Muhammad, we wish him nothing but the best, because when you're ranked that high, you want these guys to go on and be 3-year players and head off to the NFL draft. That is what, when you have your highly ranked players, that's the way you're judged in recruiting, fair or not.
Gerry, I remember there was a time, a while ago where Texas wasn't really recruiting DISD or really the Dallas metro area very well. And, whether it was Mike Davis or Peter Jenkins guys at the time, they all said, hey, Christian Scott, when Christian Scott committed to Texas and signed with Texas, that helped a lot of guys from that part of Dallas. We kind of opened some eyes to Texas. Gerry, do you think at some point, and this is the Metroplex as a whole, that they'll look back on that 2023 cycle where you had Anthony Hill, Malik Muhammad, even a guy, Jonte Cook, it didn't work out for him at Texas, but that was a really big deal for Texas getting back a foothold in the Metroplex.
No, I think it was huge. I mean, those 3 recruitments in that class, they were massive for Texas. Obviously, Arch Manning was the bell cow of the class, but Anthony Hill's flip came later on. But winning out for Jonte Cook and Malik Muhammad in that class was huge for Texas. I mean, you look at that class, and it's not just those guys, but in the DFW area, those guys were huge wins. Warren Roberson, a flip later, a decommit from TCU, a 4-star prospect. Billy Walton came with Manny Muhammad since transferred out. Trey Wisner from DeSoto in that class. Trevor Gooseby from Melissa, who weren't the most highly rated guys, but look at him now on the field. That class in DFW was huge for Texas because they'd been pointing towards that. When Sark was hired, Jeff Banks, the great idea to hire Chris Gilbert, and he should forever get part of the credit for that. Those were some huge, massive recruitments for Texas leading into Colin Simmons in 2024. Mm-hmm. I think without those guys going to Texas, does that absolutely mean to me that Colin Simmons wouldn't have gone to Texas? No, it doesn't. Not in the NIL world. But I will say this, Texas was gathering and building all that momentum with Manny Muhammad, with Jonte Cook and the guys mentioned. And then when Anthony Hill flipped, it set it to another level in DFW. And I do think that helped get Colin Simmons because kids could see Texas was building and they were winning key battles in the areas they were from in DFW. And I do think that helped Texas in the Colin Simmons recruitment, although moving to the SEC was the key.
Gerry, you've got a multiple-year starter with Manny Muhammad, a guy that, in his true freshman season By the end of that year, he was playing as much as any corner. Really, I think was probably the best corner for Texas at that point during their run to the college football playoff. But Jerry, he's leaving a corner room that's in a pretty good spot, especially when you look at the top. You go into 2026, and it starts with Cade Phillips and Grayson Littleton, two guys, Jerry, that might be on that same 3-and-done path.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with Grayson Littleton. Will he play nickel? Will he play corner? We know Cade Phillips is going to play corner. I think Texas likes Warren Roberson as a rotational player at corner. What will Kobe Black do? I think he lost a little confidence. He could get that back in the spring, obviously, if assuming he comes back to Texas. We have to wait for all these kids to make their announcements and whatnot. But then you sign some talented kids like Samari Matthews out of Huff High. He's very similar, actually, to Manny Muhammad to me from a physical standpoint and his strengths as a player. I'm not saying he's going to be as good as a true freshman as Muhammad was, or as Muhammad was in the spring of when he graduated early. I mean, he really started becoming a playmaker for Texas at that point in spring practice. But Samari Matthews, a talented corner. And then Texas will go into the portal to add to that cornerback room. So I do think with Cade Phillips, I do think that versatility of Grayson Littleton, the experience of Warren Roberson as a backup corner, we'll see what happens there with Kobe Black. Is he pencil in at corner? Could he actually play safety for Muschamp? We'll see if anybody moves around. But Samari Matthews coming in as well. I think the cornerback position, if they add in the portal, has a chance to be really solid for the Horns next year, especially because of Cade Phillips' upside.
All right, we'll get back to it here in just a second. But right now, let's hear, with the help of a couple of lifetime Longhorns, a word from our friends over at Advanced Pain Care.
Pros know the pain stops here.
Physical therapy helps me as an athlete then and now. And do I still need therapy? Yes. Advanced Pain Care helps with that.
Injuries will stack up. They'll add up. You can't let those injuries get you down, and Advanced Pain Care has been very helpful for me.
We can help with whatever's got you down, from nerve damage to our spinal cord stimulator. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Same-day appointments available.
Advanced Pain Care. The pain stops here.
Jerry, there's still a couple of things to work out in the secondary, namely Jelani McDonald, another guy in that 2023 recruiting class, still has a stay or go decision to make. But you talked a minute ago about the transfer portal. How much of that, in terms of who Texas gets, what they target, depends on what they decide to do with Grayson Littleton in 2026, either leave him at nickel or slide him out to corner?
I do think there's a piece of that. Look, and I think if you can find somebody in the portal that they can play corner, can also play slot as well, then that gives you versatility. That gives you options, right? And I do think Texas will be looking for that in the portal. But yes, Grayson Littleton, look, he is tremendous as a nickel. He's about 175 pounds. So if there is a concern with him in the SEC, it's that he's 175 pounds. That would be the concern. But he covers the slot fade as well as you can for a young football player. He can turn and run. And he can make plays on the ball. He is attached in coverage at the nickel position, which is very difficult to do. So I do think that's going to be impactful for Texas this spring, is what does Will Muschamp see with Grayson Littleton. And I do think I think one of two things could happen. Either they decide to leave Littleton at nickel and just go recruit a pure corner in the portal, or maybe they say, all right, we think Grayson Littleton can be a really good corner in Muschamp's system. Maybe they go get a little more size in nickel in the portal. So we'll see what happens there. But I think Grayson Littleton is a massive, big part of this team. And I do think one of the big questions in spring football will be, what does Will Muschamp think is best for Grayson Littleton in his scheme and for his future?
Yeah, Steve Sarkisian did say at his most recent press conference, Will Muschamp will start out working with the secondary. That was the group he worked with when he was at Georgia. We know last time he was at Texas, Jerry, he put some really, really good secondaries on the field. So no question Will Muschamp's going to have an impact on the secondary. We know Malik Muhammad will not be a part of it, though. Off to the NFL, and congrats to Manny and his future endeavors as he gets ready to, Jerry, live everybody's dream. Every kid that signs that letter of intent dreams of one day hearing their name called in the NFL draft. And like, I know you mentioned it on the on Texas Football Forum. Like, is he going to go in the second round, third round? It depends on where he tests, but he will have his name called in April.
He will have his name called. I think the testing is going to be huge for him. And I think the combine, how he performs there, is going to be really big for him as well. But the testing numbers, and everybody just thinks 40-40, the shuttle, all of that combine testing, I think is to be very impactful for him. Because I think right now, as he heads to the NFL, he's seen as a guy who's not going to test exceptionally well in the 40, we'll see. These guys have a long time to train to get ready for that 40. So if people think, well, we think he's going to run mid 4.5s, he's got months to train for that. And these guys tend to shave off 0.5 or more off of those times. So I think his complete testing, he's going to interview well. I think he's got a very high football IQ. He's a film junkie. A lot of really positive things are going to be said about him by the Texas staff. So this is really going to come down to how he tests and can he elevate himself through that testing and through that combine process.
All right, Jerry, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to our friends over at Advanced Pain Care for sponsoring it. If you're not a member, over at ontexasfootball.com, that's all right. You can head over to the site right now and sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whether it's here on the channel or on the site, you're not missing any of our Longhorn coverage all year round. For Jerry, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, hook 'em.